Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to Minds on Mushrooms. I'm your host, Maggie Kirkwood. Thank you so much for joining today. I am so excited. I'm going to call you my soul sister, Zoe Klimek, who you're tuning in near Duluth.
Yeah.
So good to have you here. I was excited to reach out to you to see if you'd be interested in being on the podcast. I think that you are just such a wonderful young human being. Zoe is the ripe age of 24, and I just wanted to share with you, you have taught me so much about understanding plant medicine and really to tune inward. And I just wanted to talk to you and let the people get to know you more. Zoe is also so talented. What do we say? Sound healer.
I feel like we could just sum it up into like artist, because that's together.
That is so true. But I have sat through a few of Zoe's sound baths and have had just profound things happen. And you are one talented human being. So thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to just learn more about you. And how are you going today?
I'm so good. I remember when I first met you and you were talking about your podcast and you threw it out there. And then I was just kind of nervous. And then one of the last ceremonies that we had together, you asked me again. And then it was like, or yes. And then just the timing of it now, I feel like I just get clearer and clearer on my vision. And so now feels like the perfect time to be chatting with you.
I love how you bring that up. I think it's so true. All of us are ever evolving. And I think myself, this podcast seems to be all about mushrooms, Minds on Mushrooms. But as I keep going and learning more and more about other plant medicines and services in the field, it is. I feel like my vision is constantly changing as well, and it's fun to meet other peoples out there, such as yourself, because I feel like it's something we can continue the conversation around and help shape each other. I want to know, for you, how do you have any stories about, so you're 24, when was it that you, I guess, dabbled or found plant medicine? I guess, was it psilocybin, or can you kind of let us hear of your journey into this space?
Yeah. I guess a good start at the beginning of like when I was in high school, there was a lot of people around me that were doing it, but it made me really nervous. I'm like, to like not be here, but now to recognize it's just because I am such a grounded person. So like leaving and being somewhere else the unknown was scary to me. But then in 2020, I would say like I had my awakening and smoked a lot of cannabis. And so that was kind of this gateway to be able to still be here, but it helped me in a lot of ways, like reconnect with my creativity and slowing down, because I feel like I'm such a fast moving person. Festival with some of my friends, and that was the first time that we had mushrooms. We went on a camping trip and we got rerouted because the festival ended up getting canceled. So we had a few other days and we found another festival to go to. And so we spent a few days at this campground in like the middle of Iowa, like all the cornfields, and had time. And so it was like me and my best friend at the time. And so we just ate a bunch of mushrooms and went on this walk, and it was this beautiful sunny day. And we were just moving in flow with each other. Not really on a mission, but just enjoying the magic of just being. and enjoying the nature around us. So it was a really beautiful time to like experience that with my friends. But I always felt like this call to want to just lay there and go inward with my eyes, but that didn't come for a few years. So first couple of trips was like all very outward, but connecting me with the earth, which is what I feel I needed first to like be physically grounded before I was able to go inward and like make sure I felt safe outwardly.
Gotcha. So I just wanted to ask quickly, when I was your age, I believe I was fresh out of college, and I just kind of want to touch on alcohol culture. I'm genuinely curious. Do you feel that growing up, is that a big part of your life or your friends' lives, or do you feel that there are, I don't want to say options, but I guess coping mechanisms other than alcohol? I feel like from what I read, maybe it's my generation that did quite a number on the younger with, I don't know. I just felt like it was such a huge part of a couple decades of my life, especially around your age. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that? Just curious.
Yeah. So growing up, I was raised by my mom, and she was sober like my whole life. Still to this day, I've never seen her drunk. Like I've seen her have a few drinks. So I grew up with that influence. And so when I was like 15, 16, you start to dabble and like have garage parties. And remember I went to an after party after Snowball. I was like 15. And we went and drank at my friend's house. And then I came home the next day. I was so hungover and tried to tell my mom that my friends were drinking, but I wasn't. But she knew that I was lying. And then I got grounded for like a month. So when I would get grounded, it was like a long time. And so it was a lot of reflection for me to like feel really bad that I let my mom down. So then it was just like not really a thing. And then me and my best friend started like going to the bars when we were 19. We figured out how to sneak in and then did the fake ID thing. I don't know if I'm going to get arrested. No.
I think you're good.
Okay. We had fake IDs, so I had many of them taken, but we just had this whole party phase. And then, so I went to school for general assisting.
Oh, wow.
Thought that like I was destined for, which, things happen, and I learned lessons of stability and how to create that for myself. And so I did that for a while, but then it was like 2020 was also the timeline of this. And I remember going to work, and part of what I had to do was go through like how to brush your teeth well. And we talked about fluoride and tell them to use fluoride. And that just felt so wrong to me because fluoride is a neurotoxin. And I'm like, I can't be lying to these kids, saying this is a good thing. Among other things. But then I just realized like, okay, I'm 20 and I'm really bored of this career that we're taught, like you have to have one thing forever. So then my best friend and I decided to go do van life. And so I had my 21st birthday, went out, partied. Yeah, that was like last time because it was brutal. And then we lived in my Chevy Equinox, and we went and traveled like the whole West Coast, all the national parks, Montana, Utah, California, all that.
Wow.
Yeah, my friend, she had really sharp intuition, but that was something I was developing alongside of like my crumbling ideas of finances. Like, thought I had great structure, but I was really bound to that. And so there was a lot of lessons within money and surrender to like letting go. And so being on the road like that, you have to be so alert and aware of your surroundings that like we went out to the bar maybe once with my cousin when we were in California. But other than that, we were sober, well, from alcohol, but so that was kind of the end of it when I was like, okay, like alcohol is kind of yucky when I would revisit it and just like didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
So that was the end of the era of realizing.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I just honestly was curious. I feel, perhaps that plant medicine is somewhat more accessible these days. Well, cannabis, we know. It was lovely to hear that that was so helpful for you. I can relate. I feel that that was, for me, cannabis as an artist or creative director back in the day really helped me to just take another look at my work, the whole thing. You get a whole new perspective, blossoming ideas, and forever grateful for it and still am. Let's talk a little bit. So Zoe is just so knowledgeable about plants in general. Did you get some sort of training, or can you tell us more about some of the medicines that you develop and work with and all of that?
So I guess I kind of have to tell the whole story to be able to get to this point. So I'll get there.
Okay.
So we were living in my car for 2 months, and a couple weeks into that, we're like, oh, we don't want to stop traveling. So we bought one-way tickets to Maui for the fall. And so we went out there with our backpacks and like not really planned other than we wanted to do work trade somewhere. And so we roamed Maui kind of homeless and had a friend that welcomed us to our couch after some time, but spent the night on beaches and in hostels and stuff. And we only applied to like 2 work trade places, and one of them, they only accepted people who were like over 23 or something. But that was the only one that had responded back to us. The family was like, we can read your energy. And we had a phone call with them, and they're like, we would love to have you guys be with us. But we're on the Big Island. So we bought tickets over there, and we went and stayed on this farm. It was off grid. So there's like no service. We had to plug our phones into the Ethernet cords. Like, and just the way the family lived was so beautiful, just like fully immersed in nature. Like phone screens were not things. Like we weren't even supposed to go on our phones in front of their kids. And so our chores every day in exchange for having this place to live was to just basically do whatever they told us to do on their farm. And so that was a lot of weeding and a lot of gardening and spending time with the earth, harvesting things. The mom was an herbalist, and so we dehydrated butterfly pea flowers. I have to go out and pick the little blossoms every day, and they had huge lemongrass plants that were like as tall as the ceiling. So we have to just working with the plants and processing them in that way. I was like, ooh, there's something there for me. And then the mom was also a midwife, and so I also thought like, wow, I see that within myself as well. So we were out there for a month and a half, spending time with that family. So really getting grounded and connected to the earth there. And then when I returned home, I felt this call to move to Bayfield, Wisconsin to take care of my grandma who had Alzheimer's. And my grandpa was still taking care of her. So I moved out there, and her and I would go on walks every day. And then I wanted to like know what plants were around me here. And so I just started taking pictures of them and would like do the swipe up thing on the iPhone, and it would tell you what they were. And so I just learned all the different names of the plants and started collecting them and putting them in jars and stuff in the basement at my grandparents'. And then my mom had seen a beginner apprentice herbal program that was in Duluth on the Facebook event. So she sent it to me, and she's like, ooh, maybe you'd like this. And so I went to that in the summer. And I remember the first day with the teacher, we went on a plant walk. Her name is Gigi Staffney. She owns Green Wisdom School of Natural Botanical Medicine.
Okay.
And she was just having this little talk with us while we were out there. And I remember her looking me in the eyes, and it just like the way I felt she could see me. She was just like, we need you at this time. And I just like had full body chills and just not the right space. So that would be kind of like the beginning of the learning part for me. And I remember her talking about they have herb camp, because that was like the beginner. And so she was saying like the next steps, which I didn't even realize like I was getting into this like thing. But I'm like, okay, I'm here. And so her next step was herb camp. And so it's a week long. You go down to like Ladysmith, Wisconsin, and every single day you go to a different ecosystem. There's like 5 different teachers throughout the day. And they're all different types of master herbalists. So some people did their presentation on community gardens, and some did on wetland restoration, and people who had little homestead farms. And so there's just so many ways that you could take herbalism, not just like clinical with people. So that was really inspiring to hear. And I knew I wanted to do it, but it had already passed for that summer. So I had the tab open in my phone for like literally 11 months. And I felt this ping to return back to that the next summer. And yeah, the registration ended like within days. So I reached out to the teacher quick, and I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to be here. And she offered me a scholarship to go do work trade and just help with herb camp, but fully be a participant. So I just filled up the waters and stuff in the morning.
Wow.
Got to be a part of that. And that was super activating for me to be in that space as well. And so, yeah, throughout from beginner to intermediate, like that whole winter, I'd spent time reading books and everything. So when that time came around, I was ready to like be immersed in it. And yeah, some classes that really stuck out to me is we did a flower essence training. And so flower essences, try to explain that. So, you know, like we have our own spirits, and so do flowers. Like they are just as alive, but they are so divine. You know, as humans, we have so many layers and like karma and trauma and this and that, but these flowers have evolved to be like this point of perfection. And so they are this channel from the earth to the divine, and they have their own essence and frequency. And so flower essences have been used since ancient times. But then Dr. Bach, back in like the 1930s, kind of during World War II, was realizing that something like medications weren't accessible. And so he started looking at things differently, as he did homeopathy, which is like another energetic way of using herbs. Okay. And he based it off of this intuitive hit that he had that water can hold memory. And then there's some studies that go to show that, like, ones that your happy tears look different and your sad tears look different. And so, yeah, he created this where you take this fresh water, fresh spring water, and then you pick your flower that you want and you let it infuse in the sun. And that's how you capture its frequency and preserve it with brandy and water so that it just doesn't get moldy. But then you have these little bottles, and then there's a flower.
Yeah. So I believe it was the last ceremony I was at with you. You had kind of developed some tinctures to work with the medicine. We were sitting with Wachuma San Pedro, or I was. Can you talk a little bit about any personal experience or anything that others have shared in how your floral essence or herbal essence can add or aid or change, I guess, if you're sitting with plant medicine? Do you have any info to share?
Yeah. So this practice that I've developed for myself has come from that inspiration that I had at herb camp when we had a little workshop on how to make them. And then another workshop was we were sitting in this prairie, and this teacher, gave us a mystery essence and was like, okay, you guys take this, sit with it. And then she just drummed. And so we all went into this meditation, and then I felt it come through me that like, I'm supposed to do this work. And so I was at home. When I came home, I started working on these little flashcards because I had so many pictures of the flowers that were around. And so I took my pictures, mixed with my grandma's pictures, and made these little flashcards.
Wow.
And then, I was planning on taking the Master Herb program that fall. And so I had a meeting with my teacher, and she's like, you could make this your thesis project. So then I really took it seriously, even more than just like, oh, it's a fun, look at my little project. And I developed like an official deck of cards.
Yes.
So here's ones that I can replicate. And then it has a little book that goes along with it too. And then flower essences that go along with it. So I really just played with that, experimenting with my friends and family. I wasn't really sure how it worked, but I knew I was supposed to like be playing with it. And so what it became is like we would sit down and have a little talk about your intentions, something that you're moving through energetically and you want support. And so then you'd go through and you'd pick the card, just like oracle cards. And then we'd get Petunia. We'd find the corresponding essence, and then I guide you through sound and meditation to be in a space to connect with that plant, then just be the space holder so that the plant medicine can work through in that way. And so once I saw that that had worked, you know, we would giggle every time they'd pull up the card and we'd read the book, and it just aligned so well with them. Like, okay, there's something so divine going on here. Yeah. And so practicing that in one house, then divinely I met Dan at R&R Spa, which is how we know each other. And then really started practicing with people there. And so, yeah, I do one-on-ones with people. I've also acquired this giant set of essences from Flower Essence Society. So it's like maybe 100 different flower essences in this really thick book called the Flower Essence Repertory. And so within this book, we would have your intention, but then try and narrow it down to one word. And so maybe the word is grief. And so we'd find that word, and then under it is all the flowers and what kind of grief, like very specifically. And then that's the essence that we'd work with for you too. And something that's developed for me, because I was like, that's so many flowers. I don't know how to memorize them all. But then through our ceremonies that we've been doing at the spa, while also using the psilocybin to like open me and connect me to the plant language a little more, I would sit there and hold the space, but also be able to like see and hear the flowers that certain people were needing. So yeah, one of our last ones, I was like seeing colors. And then at the end, when everybody kind of gets back up and comes back into the space, I'm like, would you like to work with the flower essence to help ground you back down? And so I'd pull that flower essence of the one, because I was hearing the names of them. And so I'm like, here's the one that wanted to work with you. And then we sit and work through it and then go through this little meditation to help them like ease back and like shift their frequency a little bit more, but in a grounded way. Just because flowers are here and it's not a nootropic, so it doesn't really work with your brain, more your energy field. And so like solidified them back here to be able to move forward.
Oh, okay. Off the top of your head, do you have any specific favorites, or are they all, you're equally loving of them all? Or any that you kind of turn to for, I'd like to hear more about like the specifics, if you can recall any names that kind of match what the intention or what people are hoping to work through.
Yeah, so one specific story, because throughout our retreat days, the way that I was kind of doing that has just evolved. But at one point, people were coming to see me and I was doing more one-on-ones with the meditation within that ceremony space versus just like being with everyone. And this gal had shared she went through a lot of just trauma in her life and had gone to a center. And so I just knew there was a lot there for her. And she picked this one card, Bittersweet Nightshade, which, you know, there's plants that are, you know, like petunia, peony, all these like light flowers. But then there's, what is that word? What do you use to just entheogenic plants?
Yes.
Poisonous, but like this bittersweet nightshade would be poisonous if you consumed it
Mm.
like that. But if you think about it in that way, their essence can work really deeply. And so this one brings you down into this like dark space, but I was also there to like hold and support you while you're sifting through that. And so that's the essence that she had picked. And then I had my hands, because I also was trained in Reiki. And so at that point, I was moving energy in that way too. So I had my hands in specific spots for her and just could feel the intensity of things that she was working through. And then after she had shared with me that that bone had been broken when she was a young child, and she was able to like revisit that memory. I'm sure psilocybin was helping in that way, but the flower essence was there to be like a loving support for her. And so it wasn't as hard to process. Like she wasn't so attached to the thing that she was healing at that point. And so I thought the whole story of just how they can show up and support us, because they are communicating with us too.
I love that. I think that obviously I don't believe psilocybin is for everyone. And for those that choose to explore and self-discover, I think one of the biggest pushbacks is a lot of people are just scared of the unknown. And knowing that there can be other medicine out there to, my favorite part about plant medicine is just feeling connected and a gentle hug from the universe and really safe and loved. And sometimes to get there, you might have to work through some things. So it's awesome to know that there's other medicines, legal, that can help us feel supported and loved. And you are someone who knows so much about all of it. And it's just fascinating. And I wanted to just touch back on those flashcards. And are they oracle cards? Did you make at one point a set?
Yeah.
This is so special. Zoe involved her grandmother's artwork and photography, I think. But what a special project to have literally in your hands, and just remember your grandmother by. I really think that you, I wanted to, kind of ask maybe an out of the blue question here. I believe at a ceremony we were at, you had an experience with your grandfather. I have also had connected with my grandfather, who's no longer with us. Are you open to talking about that experience?
My grandfather.
I swear it was something like your grandfather stuck his knee out and told you to come sit on his knee.
Oh, okay. That wasn't my literal grandfather. That was grandfather Wachuma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, share a little bit of that. Yeah, Wachuma is a really subtle medicine. And so for me, it's not super obvious on the external. So I'm like, am I feeling it? And then I was just kind of like running around socializing with people. And then I was like, okay, Zoe, we need to go off on our own and go inward. And so I laid down in this field, and it was freezing cold in April, but I had like my snow pants on, all my layers, and I just like laid in the grass. And I felt like Grandfather Wachuma was like, okay, are you ready to be quiet and come sit down and sit on my knee and listen to what I have to share with you? And surrendered to that. Then it opened up my own like healing.
Oh, okay.
Other story. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, because I don't know. I do feel that Wachuma is more mild. And at the time I was pondering, like, are people having these visions and connecting with, and maybe you are, and maybe you have, but not that was, you were addressing the medicine there, which San Pedro, Wachuma, we call the grandfather vine, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have another story to share with you about the Wachuma ceremony that we had later in the summer. And so it was really chilly in the spring, and so we envisioned doing one in the summer and being really sunny and warm and not having to worry about being cold. And so that was in August, and I had been invited to come to that one as well. But I was working with Combo in July, and that medicine was really working through me and clearing me out. And one of my intentions was to clear out addictions and just like gunk. And I felt so great just being completely clear and sober with nothing else interfering. And so I still wanted to be a part of this Watruma day, but I wasn't feeling called to like work with the medicine. And so that's something that's really big for me, is listening to when I'm being called to it versus like my mind trying to convince myself, oh, you should do it because you have an opportunity. But so I use that opportunity to explore a different way to work with the plants. I have been given some bear grease or bear tallow, and bear is a really beautiful medicine, as the bears go out and they eat like literally everything, and so all that energy is stored within their fat, and so on its own it's a beautiful medicine. And I had infused it in cedar because I was going to make a pain relieving salve, so I had some of that left over. And then when we were processing all the huchuma, there was all the scraps for it, and that was just going to be composted. But I was thinking like, ooh, I want to make something with it. And through talking with other herbalists, one of my friends was like, ooh, you could make a flying ointment. I'm like, what is that? And so I dug into that, and a witch's flying ointment was something that they made back in the day with different entheogenic plants, like hellebore would be an example of one. But these poisonous plants that you can't consume, and so they figured out this different way to use them. And so they would rub this flying ointment on them essentially, and astral project to the different holidays that the witches would have. And so I thought that was a really cool way to play with it. And so I kind of took it on my own spin, and I wrote a letter to Chuma, and I was like, dear grandfather, what plant would you like me to combine with this? And then I stuck that note under my pillow, and I had this dream of me just eating these super lush, beautiful hawthorn berries, which hawthorn berries really work with the heart and grief and just moving that heaviness from your chest. And also in herbalism, it slows down your heartbeat, but really like strengthens the pulse. And so I thought that was beautiful. It's also a boundary medicine too, meaning it teaches us about boundaries because the tree has these crazy spikes on it. And then the berries are more inert. So then when the birds come and eat the berries, they're protected from all the other predators. So its energy teaches us of that. And so that came forward. And so I used the scraps and I infused that into the cedar bear tallow with the hawthorn berries and just stewed that in my crock pot for a while and let all that medicine just cook together. And so then when we showed up for that ceremony, I used, when everybody was passing out their drink, I was rubbing the oil like all over me, just having my intention with it. And then we had a time where we all went off on our own. And for me, I guess part of the way I wanted to work with it in this way is because I'd already experienced it being so light and connected that I'm like, okay, let's see how I can work with its essence and how that can compare. And I would say it was pretty similar for me. And maybe I was also feeling your guys' energetics as well. But you guys all seem to like feel so connected and slow and at peace. And then for us to just meet each other where we're at, I was like, oh, this is where I'm at usually all the time.
That is hilarious. I thought you were 100% participating.
Yes.
So you were feeling similar effects, or I mean, a little just from the essence, or
Yeah.
connected. You were feeling connected. That's amazing.
Yeah, I went off on my own little journey and I remember walking through the woods and just like the excitement. And I was picking up like, I don't know, looking at all the mushrooms and having all these revelations about like people who look for mushrooms, they really like know how to look deep. Whereas usually when I'm walking in the woods, I'm looking at the plants, which are a layer above. So I was able to still like look deeper. And I remember finding some kind of animal bone that I like stepped on because I was running around barefoot like this little fairy. I'm like, this is so cool. And yeah, the medicine also showed me too of if you use it externally, you're working with like the external lessons and teachings of the plant. And then if you're to take it internally, you're working more with like the flesh energy of the cactus. And so I had just done it externally that day because I wasn't sure, but then the grandfather told me like that's how I could work with it in a different way. And so and I gifted everybody their own little bottle. And so everybody has that to work with.
I have mine. I have used it a few times before meditating or sitting to meditate. I think that I probably need to get I wanted to talk about combo. That is something I have yet to sit with. But so you said you were kind of specifically using it to rid you of addictions, just kind of like a reset. Can you talk to us more about combo and your experience with it?
Yeah. So my first time that I had done it was before our first day with Wachuma, and it was really intense. The first night that we'd all stayed there, I woke up in the middle of the night with my bleed, and so that usually doesn't happen. But then the morning when we were going to do it, I did just a few dots because you're more sensitive when you're bleeding, and I did it, and it was just this really intense feeling and like the stomach cramps that I had. Long story short, when I made it to the bathroom, like things were coming out of literally every hole. And it was a great cleansing, but I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I knew that wasn't like the end of me working with that medicine, but to be able to work with it in that intensity so that I had that gauge. And then fast forward to like the summer, I was just continuously having dreams of me serving others or teaching people how to do it. And so, I mean, before that, if that ever happens for me, it was like, okay, I need to work with it myself and feel through it. And so, the way that you're supposed to work with combo is between moons. I can't remember if it's full moon to full moon or new moon to full moon, but you're supposed to do it 3 times within that period. And it worked in alignment for me and Emily to sit down and do it. And it just happened to be like 3 days in a row, which I liked because you're on a really strict regimen, like diet. So it was nice to just like kind of get it back to back. But my first day, my intention was to clear out my whole energetic body. And I was going through it. And so we did, I want to say 3 dots the first day. So we did we did 4 and then 5 and then 3. And the last day was a little lighter. But yeah, the first day, the intention to clear up my energetic body and then just like feeling the energy moving all around. And I remember my hands just got like so tingly, like they were paralyzed. I couldn't move them, but I work with my hands a lot as an artist and an energy worker. And so I had peace in that. I wasn't like, what's happening? Just like, okay, I feel that. And then the second day, my intention was to clear this energy of addiction that I know is like generational for me. But addiction coming to like being on your phone, like you get addicted to that. Addiction with food, addiction with substances, like all of that. Just to like clear that from my being. And that one was really, really intense. But within that, I also had peace in it, knowing that like the ugly purge that was like coming out was like deep, very deep. And so surrendered to it and let it pass and like just connecting and feeling into my body. And they say that your meridian lines are resetting when you're working with combo. If you like your whole body just like starts shaking. And that was happening to me. And so I like surrendered because I also knew that fact. So I'm like, okay, I understand what's happening here. Like my whole body is being recalibrated. And then the third day, the energy it being to connect with my body deeper now that I had like that reset of my energy. And so that day became just like me intuitively, just like tapping myself with EFTs to just like move it through. And I could feel the energy in the combo, like just moving throughout my body.
Wow.
That was really powerful. And so I feel like, yeah, this deep purge of my body and all the toxins and all the physical stuff that combo does, but also really connected deeply to the energy of the medicine and how that also works with ours.
And just for the listeners, probably I should have stated this to begin with, but combo is comes from a frog, right?
Yeah.
And is it their poison?
Yes, there's secretions off the back when they're kind of in this fight or flight mode.
Okay.
And so then this, yeah, it's on a stick and then you wet the stick and then it's like all the secretions and then you put them into your burn holes or your gates. And then it goes like directly into your bloodstream and just like activates you really quick. And you're having kind of an allergic reaction, but your immune system is just being like really stimulated. So it helps strengthen your immune system as well. And it's known as the vaccine of the jungle. So it's like routinely done for the children out there where it originates from.
Yeah, it's well, let's put it this way. I'm feeling the calling. So I'm excited to kind of dig deeper. And I appreciate you explaining kind of the lengthily journey with you and it, because I think it's a very intense medicine. And obviously, the more you know, and the more you know how to work with it, I think the more effective. Um, Obviously, with any plant medicine, I feel this. And yeah, I guess let's see here. I wanted to talk about what is your relationship currently to psilocybin, if you don't mind sharing. Do you, yeah, I'd like to hear from you about you and the psilocybin.
Yeah. Well, over the years, it's really helped me just connect to the earth further. And yeah, when I was living in Hawaii, there was many times we went on walks and just like looking at the crazy mountains and trees, ancient like energy of the forest, like really, yeah, connected me to the earth as well. And so I've used it a lot in that way, but then also got to a point where I was doing inner work on it, and that was really beautiful. And the last time that I sat with it, it actually told me like I don't need it anymore. It's like you've learned everything that you can to this point, and maybe someday it'll come back, but it's not something that I'm like actively trying to use because I'm just trying to respect it, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. I received a similar message recently, and I just have so much respect for the medicine. I microdosing is something I continue to do, but as far as sitting with anything larger, it for me it needs to be a special occasion and not for me, I like to say I'm willy-nilly because I kind of started this journey on my own and then slowly started to find community and people and understand medicine even more. And yeah, it's interesting. I just wanted to ask again because I'm so impressed with your wisdom at your fine young age. um, Alrighty. Well, I kind of wanted to see what you have set up here. Did you set up some sound bowls? And I guess before we get to that, is there anything else that you'd want to share about anything, or should we? um, do you feel like, yeah, how about this? What's the best way to find you so people can learn more about you and your offerings?
Yeah. So I have an Instagram that I would say I'm the most present on, but it's still not a lot. I'm working on that. My business is called Emerald Heart Collective, and then I believe there's an underscore at the end there. And so Emerald Heart Collective now is this collective of my passions and my callings. And so over the years and things that I've gone through, like it was a birth doula, but I'm not practicing that anymore. I feel more drawn to placenta encapsulation, which is something I learned through that. So it was just this doorway for me. And then I do a lot of sound bath ceremonies around the Duluth area. But I would love to like travel and go have people have me as well. That's a dream. And then I'm continuing to do herbal consults with people. So if the doctor's not hearing you in the way that you want to be heard, or you're looking for something more natural for you and your family, I do intakes with people, and then we do consults on the different really holistic supports, because it's not just like, here's your herbs. It's like, okay, what other ways can we support you in that? So that's another line of the work that I do. And then this summer I did a lot of plant walks. So it feels really good for me to connect people to the land that they live on. So I started out doing plant walks in town, but then really realized the value is connecting to what's in your backyard. And so I've gone to people's houses this summer and would introduce them to the plants that they have. And depending on where they're at, sometimes we did a little medicine making because they didn't know how to make an infused oil or a tincture. So yeah, that's what I do. And my website is also emeraldheartcollective.com. And so then all my offerings are on there as well. And yeah, I'm just going to continue to grow and evolve. And so nothing is like black and white. I'm open to collaborating with others in any way that aligns.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And I will be sure to link your Instagram and your personal website so everybody knows how to find you and learn more about all of your wonderful offerings. It's been so great to see your face and to talk to you. And what do you say? Should we give some sound bowls a try here? I'm excited to see how this works out.
Yeah. I hope it sounds good.
All right, dear. Go for it whenever you're ready.
Okay. If you're listening and you stayed around, I invite you to close your eyes down. Take a couple deep breaths. Inhaling and filling up your whole body. And exhaling it all out. Taking an inhale in again and creating space within your being. Exhaling all that density. Feel yourself start to come into this more floaty space inside your body, tuning out the outside world. And feeling this cord from your tailbone going down into the center of the earth. Visioning it traveling through all the layers of dirt, moving around all the roots, and anchoring into the core. Feeling yourself heavy, held down by gravity. Feeling the air all around you. Feeling the waters move within you. Allowing yourself to be here and anchored into the earth. Know that it's feeding you energy from the core. Reminding you of your being and connectedness to all things. invite you to bring some deep breaths back into your body. Notice any shifts within your being. Remembering that connection into the center of the earth is always there. And that it's through our bodies that we experience life. These are our avatars to navigate the world. We are connected to each and every one of each other and all the plants, the animals. Bring some gentle movement back into your fingertips. And gently opening your eyes when you're ready. Giving gratitude to have eyes to see and witness all the beauty that's around us.
That was amazing, Zoe. I think it sounded wonderful. It was so good. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be checking back in with you. I'm excited to hear how these exciting times come together for you and the wonderful community that you have up in Duluth. And you are one talented, gifted girl.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to know you.
Likewise, hon. I will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you for joining the journey. You can tune in to Minds on Mushrooms on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.